Hello Moto GP fans. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Ducati's technical director Davide Barana laid out a two-front plan for 2026, squeeze performance from the current GP26 while simultaneously racing to design the brand new engine and package for 2027. Below that explains Ducati's thinking, the rules constraints, and what to watch next. Marc Márquez arrived at Ducati's GP26 presentation with an honest update. He's back on the bike, but recovery after the Indonesian GP shoulder injury remains a work in progress. With Sepang tests, February 3rd to 5th, just around the corner, the big question is not whether Márquez can be fast, it's whether he can sustain that speed across back-to-back test days and the long 2026 season. At Ducati's 2026 presentation, Marquez Bagnaia answered his critics bluntly and reset the narrative. After a testing year that fell short of expectations, he's calmer, focused and determined to respond on track. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Barana is frank. After years of stable regulations, the low-hanging fruit is gone. Ducati isn't looking for a single miracle fix. It's hunting dozens of small margins across chassis, aero, electronics and setup. Those tiny gains add up into a usable advantage on race day, which is why the factory is spreading effort across many departments rather than betting everything on one development thread. Small improvements in many areas, when combined, create a manageable and consistent advantage. In practice, that means more parallel test programs, more component permutations on the track, and a development philosophy that prizes reliability of gains over flashy one-offs. Regulation-wide decisions force the pragmatic choice: freeze the core engine architecture for 2026 so teams can divert resources to the 2027 redesign. Ducati will therefore race with an engine effectively identical to 2025's. But Barana warns there remains scope for minor, non-sealed component changes that can still influence performance. Expect detailed optimization rather than wholesale power upgrades. The engine is identical to last year's, but some components are not sealed. Translation: expect refinement, mapping, ancillaries, integration, rather than an engine revolution this season. Barana acknowledges rivals have closed the gap, and regulation mechanics mean concessions will shift. He explicitly flagged Honda's change in status as significant. Losing concessions will force them to push hard and return stronger. That matters for Ducati's planning because a reinvigorated Honda changes the threat map and forces Ducati to defend gains on multiple fronts. Honda will lose the concessions, so they'll surely be back. In other words, don't assume Ducati's 2025 margin will be static. Rivals are regrouping and will be hungrier. While tending the 2026 race bike, Borgo Panigale is already deep into the 2027 engine and package. Barana says engine work is further advanced because it needs the longest lead time, while aero/chassis work is being sequenced more cautiously, especially because tire supplier change, to Pirelli, adds an unpredictable variable. Ducati's approach is therefore split: short-term optimization for 2026, and a parallel, resource-heavy redesign aimed squarely at the 2027 rule reset. We're much further along with the engine because it has a longer development cycle. Expect Ducati to pace its visible updates this year, deliberate tweaks now, bigger structural changes ready for the rule reboot next season. Bottom line, Ducati is playing chess on two boards: polish and protect the current package while investing heavily in the next generation. Barana's messages are pragmatic, incremental gains win races today, but the true battle starts with 2027's new engine rules. Watch for steady on-track tweaks through the early tests and for larger, quieter development moves in Ducati's 2027 program. The clearest, most worrying line from Márquez is simple and brutally honest: his body performs well in short windows, but stamina over consecutive days is still a problem. That matters more than you might think. Moto GP testing and the early European swing demand multiple days of consistent output from both rider and machine. A rider who hits top pace on day 1 but fades on day 2 forces engineers to recalibrate. Is a good lap time the product of peak form or a recoverable baseline? For Marquez and Ducati, the task is to build confidence and sustained performance so that one fast day doesn't mask vulnerabilities across a race weekend. I can ride very well at a normal level for one day, but then on the second day I drop off a lot. Marquez knows the geography of testing. Sepang is a physical grinder, high heat, long runs, and heavy braking that all expose any lingering weakness in shoulders or conditioning. He predicts a strong first day, then warns of the critical second day transition that will reveal whether rehabilitation is complete or still fragile. That transition is where race simulation work happens, longer stints, race runs, tire degradation studies. If Marquez's body can't cope with consecutive days at pace, Ducati will face a difficult trade-off between chasing aero and setup data and preserving its champion's fitness for the season opener. I anticipate that in Malaysia, on the first day I'll feel great, but Malaysia is a tough test for everyone, physically, and the hardest thing to manage is the transition from the first day to the second. One consistent theme in Marquez's remarks is maturity. He links speed directly to physical readiness. That's an important mental shift. In past years, Marquez often pushed through pain. Now he frames measured recovery as the route to peak performance. For Ducati, this is good news. If he's honest about limits, training and load management can be tailored precisely. Gym cycles, riding stints, physiotherapy. The implication for rivals is clear. The faster Marquez's conditioning clears that second day test, the sooner his raw speed becomes a season-long weapon again. If I feel good about my physical condition, the speed is there. Marquez also stressed that technical work will continue irrespective of his limited Valencia mileage. Ducati will use the Sepang shakedown to start from a 2025 baseline and then roll through a long list of aero and peripheral engine parts, within the freeze rules. That creates two simultaneous pressures. The team must gather critical aero/handling data quickly while managing its champion's on-track minutes. Strategically, Ducati may choose to prioritize sessions where Marquez can do maximum value laps, qualifying runs, specific corner work, rather than long race stints, relying on Alex and Pecco to fill longer program gaps. It's a pragmatic, phased approach. Get the most from Marquez when he's fresh, and let testing mileage be shared where possible. We'll start with our 2025 base and introduce new things from there. I was told they have a long list, so we'll work on the aerodynamics to try and improve the cornering. Marc Márquez's message is clear and measured. Speed is still inside him, but consistency across test days is the remaining hurdle. Sepang will be the first true litmus test, not just of the GP26's updates, but of whether Marquez's recovery plan translates into 2, 3, and ultimately full race weekends at championship pace. For Ducati, the balancing act is on. Capture maximal technical data without compromising the rider who remains their most decisive variable. Bagnaia opened the press conference by drawing a firm line between useful, constructive pressure and needless attacks. He made it clear he'll take on board criticism that helps him and ignore the rest, a grown-up approach after a bruising season in which emotions ran high and headlines were plentiful. The tone was defensive but disciplined. He isn't denying mistakes, he's choosing to focus energy on solutions rather than on online vitriol. It depended on who the criticism came from, because 90% of it was unnecessary. Practically, that means Bagnaia will only engage with feedback that leads to measurable change, engineers' data, coach input, writing adjustments, and not the social media noise that distracts. Bagnaia didn't sugarcoat last season. He compared it to the very best years he's had and admitted the bike/rider package didn't find the same balance. That frank admission is useful. It lets the team target specific areas, chassis feel, entry stability, aero balance, rather than chase vague fixes. Importantly, he reminded everyone he knows how to win. This was an aberration, not a reset of his capabilities. I came from 4 or 5 seasons finishing first or second. This year we couldn't find the balance to always be fast. Expect Ducati's engineers to treat 2026 as a rebuild, retain strengths but refine the regions of the envelope that caused Bagnaia to lose consistency. Bagnaia also dug into a technical and situational weakness that surfaced last year, being shuffled back into heavy pack situations where slipstreaming and aero turbulence turned long straights into a braking and handling minefield. He even gave it a name, shorthand that helps explain why isolated great weekends, like Motegi, sat beside terrible ones. Fixing it requires setup work and qualifying performance to avoid the madhouse in the first place. When you're behind, with 15 bikes creating a slipstream, everything changes. I called it the madhouse. The tactical implication is clear. Better qualifying, small aero/ergonomic tweaks and race pace strategies will be a priority so Bagnaia spends fewer race laps fighting turbulent air and more laps riding his rhythm. With his contract situation still a talking point in the paddock and Ducati prioritizing Marquez's renewal, Bagnaia kept the spotlight fixed on performance. He stressed that Valencia's new bike runs renewed his belief and that Sepang, February 3rd to 5th, will be the first meaningful barometer. He also admitted the personal toll of critics but closed with a simple reminder that his hunger remains intact. He's training, testing, and ready to let results answer the doubters. There were times when a third-place finish would infuriate me. That competitiveness is a double-edged sword. It fuels comeback potential but also raises pressure. For Bagnaia, channeling that edge into measured development this winter will determine whether 2026 becomes redemption or another year of questions. Bottom line, Bagnaia's message was both blunt and practical. Most of the noise was useless, the technical issues are identifiable, and his mindset is reset. Sepang's preseason tests will show whether the new GP26 and Bagnaia's winter work can translate criticism into comeback results. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your Moto GP news update. And see you next time!